Hey everyone, welcome on back. My name is Matt, Cryptic if you prefer, and today we're going to be talking about more topology stuff. So I wanted to get into some more kind of advanced ways of handling topology on different types of objects, and so I figured this would be a good way to kind of go over some paneling techniques, not necessarily like sci-fi paneling, but more so like objects with different types of extrusions on them. So things like circles and ovals and like more curved shapes, and how to kind of isolate and support everything at once while not ruining the topology of the model. So if you're new to this series, welcome. And if you haven't already, please hit that like and that subscribe button. It does help the channel and it helps support what we do here. And if you really want to take it the extra mile, you can join me on Patreon, where you can get a free model every month, credit as a producer on my videos, and much more. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump on into this tutorial. All right, so if you're already familiar with these videos, you're kind of familiar with the format on how we run these. We'll start off with like our base mesh, and we'll kind of move on to the more advanced stages. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna look at this plane. This plane has a couple of different shapes that I have laid out that we're going to both work on extruding and supporting. The purpose of this is to show you how to more so isolate your geometry to certain areas. That way you can still add the support that you need without taking edge loops and throwing them all over your model, because this is a really common mistake that I see a lot of people do. Is they'll just add enough support to make everything look good, but it'll add edge loops flying through the model, it'll look bad, it won't subdivide properly, and it just kind of mucks up your scene. So we have our plane. You can kind of see the shapes that I already carved out. We're gonna go ahead and turn on our extruded example, and so this is a better kind of look at what we're kind of attempting here. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to add one more extrusion, and I'll kind of show you how that works. But in general, this is what we're looking at. So when you're looking at supporting something like this, you have to kind of establish like where are your edge loops going to run, because we know that we want to keep these flat, we want to keep these corners kind of sharp, we want to keep this curved, and then we want to keep these circular and curved as well. So we have to establish what we need to do. And so we'll look at our finished example here, and you can see that this one is supported. We've kind of maintained everything that we wanted to keep, and everything's looking pretty good. Now we're going to use a couple of different techniques here, but we're going to go through how I did this and how I kept both these objects the same without running lines through them and without screwing up their topology, while also supporting an object that's stuck in a corner that needs to be supported. Because if we smooth this, you'll see how this kind of affects this geometry. So looking at this, none of this is, very sharp or clean or anything. The other thing we have here is we lose our corner. So if we want to maintain this corner, how do we go about doing that? So what we're going to do is we're going to turn both of these objects off. We're going to move this one to center. And as always, if you guys want these download files to kind of follow along, they're in the description on the Google Drive link. But we're going to go ahead and start working with this. So the first thing is we need to select everything that we want to extrude, and we need to extrude it. So we're just going to tab, hold, and drag. Just kind of grab everything here that we need, and we're going to extrude. So we'll pull that up, and we're going to do the same thing here, and we're going to extrude this inwards. Okay, so we have our extrusions done. Now we want to support this. So we know I want to keep this corner as rounded as I can, and I want to keep this stuff kind of straight and sharp. So there's a couple of ways to do this, and traditionally, if you've watched the other videos, I've shown you very manual ways to do this. We're going to go about this in more of a manual method and an automated method, because there are better ways to do topology that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, with tools that don't necessarily make sense to use, but we're going to do it anyway. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the outer ring of this object, the lower one right here. Oops. Just make sure you got everything. And do the same thing here. Because we already know what we're doing with these objects, we know what we need to select. So we're going to select the top and the bottoms to add the initial kind of supporting edge loops that we know aren't going to affect or run through our geometry at all. So with these selected, what we're going to do is we're going to bevel them. So when you bevel, you get, an obvious edge bevel. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually disable the chamfer, And this is going to give us the dual supporting loops that we would normally just kind of draw out manually. And we can change the fraction on this if we wanted to. We'll kind of leave it there. 0.3 should work fine. And that's it. So you can see now when we smooth this, we now have a more sharpened kind of setup here. In fact, let me do that to the inside of this too, real quick. Because we don't want to forget this piece. We do need this one supported as well. So we'll bevel, turn off the chamfer, which sometimes doesn't want to actually do what it's supposed to. There we go. And we'll go to 0.3 just to kind of keep everything cohesive. Okay, so you can see when we smooth that, we have a pretty good result. Everything's kind of supported, but you know, again, we lose this sharpness on these corners and we really want to maintain that. So we need to go about adding that now. So we know historically to support a corner, we have to drag edge loops through to kind of pin that corner and get it sharp. And in many cases, this will work just fine. But I'll show you how this actually causes an issue. So we'll go multi-cut. We're going to do a supported corner there and a supported corner there. Same thing here. I'm going to go right down here. I'm going to go drag one there and drag one here and here. Okay, so that gives us kind of what we're looking for. So you can see if we smooth this, we get those nice sharp kind of renditions there. We just need to add one more because, wait, no. Need to add one more because that corner didn't get supported, neither did this one. So when we smooth that, you can see we've got that nice sharp curve. Same thing up here we need to do, so we'll just go and drag this through. I should only need to use one there. No, we'll use two. So we'll just do one more. This will give us that nice sharp point. So that's what we're looking at. So it looks great. Honestly, like at that point, you could call that done. But the problem is, you can see that we just jacked up both of these. These are now messed up, they don't work. Functionally, they're no longer circular and we want to maintain that. So we need to figure out how to localize our topology to each one of these objects. With these guys right here, we don't really have to do much. We just need to make sure we're not dragging loops through it. We do need to fix this corner though. So the first thing we're going to tackle this corner. So looking at this, I know that I need to somehow support this corner. So we're going to go multi-cut. And actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to just kind of drag it a little bit in. That way we don't clash with that because that is a little direct. Okay, so we've dragged that through. Now we have triangles. So let's go ahead and we'll use target weld. We're going to just weld these to this corner. That's going to give that support and it kind of isolates this further. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We'll just drag over here. And we're going to follow the same purpose or the same kind of tool set there. We're going to merge those and call that good. So now you can see when we smooth, we have maintained our corner. That's important. So that's the first kind of step to fixing some of this. All right, so when we look at this, we need to figure out how we want to kind of take this geometry and terminate it, kind of close it in. So I know that I don't have a lot of places to link to here. I'd like to kind of refine this a bit. So I will take my multi-cut tool. I'm going to drag an edge here, just to kind of give me a place to close this off with. And I'm going to look at how I want to kind of kill off this geometry. So I know that this one goes straight through that model. So I'm going to click here and shift double click here to select that section and control delete. That's going to isolate this piece and it's going to get us started on what we're doing. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this corner pin and delete it. We're going to take our target weld, drag to there. And then same thing here. We're going to take this corner pin and delete it. So this leaves us with an end gone, but this is something we can start correcting now. So we want to have a place to kind of tag this and get it stuck. So what we're gonna do is add one more of these. Just give that little outer support where we need it. And then from here, we're gonna just build this little shape here. That's gonna give us a quad. That's gonna take care of that. And then we have this issue now. So easiest way to fix this. So you'll see that we have this piece right here. This is almost unnecessary. So what we'll do is we'll control delete that. We're going to split this face. By splitting this, we're gonna create two more quads. And then when we smooth, you can see we have nice quadded topology. It supports everything that we're trying to kind of retain here, as well as we have nice sharp corners. So when it comes to UVing, we can actually get through there and UV this. So is this necessary all over the place? Technically not really, but we're gonna use a couple more techniques to kind of isolate a lot of this geometry and reduce the poly count. So if we look at this right now, our polygon count is 692 faces. I know that this is currently in its state, supported the way I want it to be supported. We just want to reduce it a little bit and just kind of clean up this geo. So what we're going to do is we're going to target weld some of this. We're going to use what's called a kite. And kites are really awesome for terminating edges and getting everything to kind of flow together. So we will take this vert and I'm just going to drag it out a little bit. And so traditionally a kite is actually going to be kite shaped. I'll usually leave them like this because it doesn't necessarily affect anything. But a kite is just a quad that has been kind of flipped almost. It doesn't follow the traditional edge flow. But you can see how this worked out. It supports that corner. And if we turn off our wireframe here, we don't get any deformation or anything like that, but we've reduced what was 3 down to 1. This is a common technique I'll use to go through and reduce edge flow because I don't want these edges running through my model in their entirety. I want to make sure that I'm isolating geometry and keeping it by itself. So we'll look over here, and this is going to be kind of another example where I would probably use a kite. So this one is a little bit more dense. We're going to take these. So we're going to leave that little piece of support there. So this is again where I'd want to do another kite. So I don't need that. And this is where you will do a little bit of like reworking with your geo. And it's okay to go through and have to like redo things or rework things. Like there's really no problem with that. So we want to establish that our kite's probably going to end right here. We're going to take this guy. We're going to target weld a lot of this together. Escape. We're going to delete this to create our kite shape, and then this edge is now useless. And this is a piece of geo that we can now kind of carry through. So when we smooth this, you can see that we've created this kind of n-gon here. So we're going to carry this geometry through and terminate it elsewhere because this is something that we actually want to like retain. So we will just pull this through. This will offer a little bit of additional support as well and give us an area to terminate everything. And we'll just pull through to right about there. All right, cool. So the same thing we're going to do here. We're going to terminate with a kite. Just target. And we will grab this corner, delete it, and then we'll take these extra loops. And you can see how we're already reducing stuff. So we're down to 690. We've removed a lot of topology from this. We've created a little bit with this loop that we're dragging through, but eventually everything's going to kind of like even out. And you can see we're still getting that nice shape without any distortion. So same thing down here. This one is not going to be a kite though. So with corners like this, I like to generally keep the topology and kind of carry it through. So we'll look at this. We don't need this. We do want this one itself to carry through. So we'll kind of just drag that out and fixate it a little bit. And then we don't need this. So same thing here. We're going to multi-cut through. We're going to get rid of that. And you can see we're still maintaining this little quad kind of corner flow. This is what we're trying to maintain throughout the model. So one thing that we'll do is we'll go ahead and continue supporting this outer edge. Give us just a little bit more to kind of support and terminate to. This will also allow you to do any extrusions outside of this if you need to increase the size of the space. So we'll multi-cut from here to here. That gives us a nice quad. And then once again, we can just check to make sure everything's kind of working properly in the way it's supposed to. So we'll just do a double check here just to see like how everything's kind of flowing, and you'll see that these lines stop here. So technically they do still kind of flow through the model. They do eventually kind of collapse together, and we'll kind of end that right here. And I know this seems like a lot of work, but I promise you in the long run, it's definitely a good thing to get used to doing. It will save you a lot of time when it comes to your UVs and your texturing because you won't be dealing with as many artifacts and errors. Okay, so same thing here. We're just looking at reducing. I always will delete these corners because these corners are going to get redirected. This piece can now be dragged out. We're just trying to kind of even everything out a little bit. Same here. This entire edge no longer matters. So we can actually delete this entire thing. And now we're just going to kind of redirect a little bit. And this kind of workflow, you'll get faster at it as you go. It seems a little daunting at first, but you'll get better at it. Okay, so we have this extra loop that goes through, because we can see we terminate this over here. So we're going to end up doing the same thing here. So in all honesty, we can actually just deselect this stuff, because we're going to keep that. And we can just get rid of that. We don't need it. Okay. So same thing here. We're going to take this target weld, drag this over here. It's okay to do stuff like this. It is best to kind of refine this and get this as close in as possible. That way you don't have these huge like stretching polygons, but it's not going to be the end of the world if you do. And then here's another situation where we will just use another kite. So we're going to go multi-cut, drag to here. And this is going to solve our other issue because we have these lines moving through this mesh. So we're going to take these, target weld, to escape, control delete, double click, control delete. That refines a lot of that. We no longer have that running through, so that's going to be a little bit more stable now, minus this one that we have running through currently, which this guy, looking at him now, we actually don't need entirely. So we just need these pieces here. We'll keep those and we'll delete that. So that gets rid of that. We're down to 650 faces. So this is all about reducing. This is gonna really help make sure that your meshes are as optimized as they can be and your topology is as clean as they can be. So continue just working this in. We know that we need to connect to this point. So we're gonna take this guy, go here, and then we're going to just jump across, but I'll show you how we're going to kind of reduce this and fix this. So currently we don't have anything to kind of support this. This corner doesn't really go anywhere, so we do need to redirect it. So what we're going to do is we're going to drag there, drag over here, and pinch to there. So this is going to allow us to redirect that corner while avoiding everything that we're trying to retain. And then from here, we can do the same kind of like kite technique. We're going to just merge these together. And we don't need that. So this entire edge loop now can go away. Control delete. And we're going to go ahead and just pin that to that corner. Okay. And then if you want to, you can go through and just straighten this out a little bit. All right, cool. So once I smooth that, you can see once again, just supported. This is the whole idea is we're going through, we're supporting this stuff. It's keeping everything really clean and localized, and it's keeping us from destroying any of our other meshes. We could technically stop here. Like we don't need to do this, but the reality is that if you're doing it all over the place, you might as well do it here. So same thing, gonna just control delete. We want that one running through. This is the kind of thing that I would probably go through and just straighten out a little bit, just to kind of show like, hey, this one's isolated. It's not necessarily affecting anything else. Everything else is just allowed to exist as it's supposed to. And this will also kind of help reduce any like dense areas when you do any sort of subdivision. So that's good there. And really, we just want to kind of look at how this is directing. So we know that this is creating an n-gon right here. So what I will do is I will delete that, and we're going to just work this out a bit. So that creates a quad minus this issue. So this is another problem that we could have, is that we have another piece of geometry affecting the main piece that we were trying to work on. So this is something where, again, we can look to potentially just terminate it if we actually have to. The reality is we're actually just going to redirect this. So I'm going to just kind of move this. We're going to multi-cut all the way through. This probably is going to create some triangles, and we will work with those now. We'll Q escape that. We'll just select these. And then from here, we can just drag to, we can just target weld this. And then we're going to do the same kind of thing over here. Control delete. We're going to target weld. And you know, that creates triangles. So same thing. We're going to just give ourselves a little bit of geo to work with. We can take these and kind of pull these in, and this is just another way to kind of terminate edge flow and terminate topology. So you can see we were reduced now, and we've retained our shape everywhere else. So once we smooth this, hi, Future Matt here. So I realized that after I made this video, I screwed up. So I kind of lost track of what I was doing, and I realized that the object I built in this does not match the object that I provided in my in my example files. So when we're looking at this edge right here, the way that I terminated that actually created two n-gons, and I totally didn't realize it until I was editing this video. So when you're looking at this, this is the flow that you want to kind of retain. This is what you want to work with. We're not looking to do that termination that I just ran through. That is still a valid way to terminate things as long as you're not creating n-gons off to the sides like I did in this video. So just to drop in and kind of correct myself on that, make sure that you're following the flow of the original object, which is included in the example files, and you can kind of see it right here. This is actually how I intended to build it out. I just screwed up. So just want to hop in, say that real quick, say my piece, now back to the rest of the video. We have exactly what we're looking for. So this gives us all of the support that we were looking for, while also allowing us to maintain these shapes, because the last thing we want to do is lose control of these circularized shapes, because the more edge loops you drag through that, if it wasn't set up initially to actually support that edge loop, it's going to deform, and it's not going to shade properly. It's going to look bad. So this is just a really good example on how you can take a more kind of complicated setup and retopologize it and do it in a way that makes sense and in a way that actually supports the model without damaging the rest of the model. It's really important that you look at stuff like this and you decide how you want to maintain your edge flow without completely trashing your model's topology. And you know, there are still things that we could nitpick here. Like we could actually go over here and clean this one up. So technically I could go in here and target weld these together with just another kite. Get rid of those. Get rid of those 3. So these are just the ways that you want to start looking at your models and figuring out how you can retopologize these, because once you've done this, we can go mesh, we can smooth it, and you can see now we get this really nice clean distribution of edge flow, and the only densities that we're dealing with are areas of support. So this area supporting these little pin corners, anything that's running through the model itself. And if you really wanted to go crazy with this, you could clean up these as well. Like there are kind of endless combinations on how you can do this while just paying attention to how your edges are actually flowing around the object. Generally, my kind of idea around this is that I want to frame the object. So if I'm looking at this, I can tell that we have actually framed this object in a way that when you look at it, you're like, oh, okay, cool, that's why, and that's how it's supported. Just following along with the same concepts of the original videos, we want to make sure that our densest areas are the areas that have the support that they need. We don't want big, thick lines running through our geometry, because that's what we're trying to avoid. That's what we want to reduce and get rid of. I hope this video helped you. I hope this was a little bit more of an advanced look at how to kind of go through and make it easier to work with your objects, especially when it comes to UVing, because something like this would be historically very difficult to UV, but now you have these wonderful little sharp edges that when we brought this into a UV cutting software, we'd cut this, we'd have a very nice clean seam, and we'd be able to work with that and kind of refine from there. So again, I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, as always, leave them below. If you want to, you can join our Discord, where we have a bunch of people who are willing to kind of help work with you and support, as well as kind of direct contact with me. And then again, if you'd like to support me further and you want to get a video producer credit as well as free models, you can join me at Patreon, Cryptic Visionary on Patreon. The link is in my description as always. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.